Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 81.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Todd Weaver. He's the Vice President over at Strategies for College, and he's a former financial aid administrator. So he's got a lot of great information on how to pay for college. We're actually going to go through a blog post that they have on their site called The 4 Fatal Errors Parents Make. And I think the 4 concepts are a great way for families to start thinking about what it is they're trying to do for college or with college, and kind of some of the big pitfalls that families fall into as they work through the college process. Now, in this episode, we do talk a little bit about calculating your financial aid, and we also talk about scholarships. So I do have a couple great resources that I will give you the information about as well. We have the EFC calculator, which is kind of hot off the presses. It's been out there for maybe 3 or 4 weeks now, if that. But the EFC calculator can be found at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/EFC. And if you go to that webpage, there's a calculator there where you can put in about 20 different variables like your AGI or income, how many students you have and how many people in the family, and your age and your assets and those types of things. And it'll help you calculate how much need-based aid you're going to qualify for. Now, for some of you, that might be a little bit overwhelming to try and figure out what goes in which blank and how it all works. So there's a number of tutorials over there as well so that you'll get a little bit of help. There's information on each of the blanks as far as what goes in the blank and what doesn't. And there's some videos if you want even more instruction as far as how it all works. And on top of that, there's a couple intro videos on how financial aid works. So once you run the calculator and you get some answers, it can help you understand what those answers mean. In addition, we have the scholarship guide for busy parents. Now, the scholarship guide for busy parents is found at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/scholarships. And the scholarship guide for busy parents is a tutorial that helps parents understand how scholarships work and help you determine if you should pursue scholarships, how you should pursue scholarships, and just some ideas on how that might all work. So if you head over there, there's 4 videos that we will email to you. And each of those videos kind of teaches you a little bit about private scholarships and institutional scholarships and the scholarship basics and where to find them. But all told, each video is only about 10, 12 minutes long. So after about 45 minutes, you should be able to have a good feel for scholarships and make a plan as to whether or not you're going to pursue a whole bunch of scholarships, if you're going to pursue just a few scholarships. Or for some families, the right answer is to ignore scholarships and just say, well, our time is better spent doing other things besides scholarships. So we're going to look for the 3 or 4 low-hanging fruit scholarships, and after that, we're moving on, and we're not going to worry about scholarships. All of those are a good answer, depending on your situation, and this guide will help you understand your situation so you can make an informed decision as far as what you want to do with scholarships. So those are 2 great resources I wanted to tell you about, and again, it's all at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. And the show notes for this episode are also at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/81. And we'll put notes to or links to these other resources at that spot as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Todd Weaver. All right, today we're sitting down with Todd Weaver. He's the Vice President of Strategies for College. Welcome, Todd.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to become a VP of Strategies for College.
No problem. Well, I was someone who used to work in financial aid. I discovered that families were not getting the information they needed to make informed decisions on how to pay for college. And I did that for several years at a national research university in Greater Boston, and just felt that it was really important to find a way to work with families and just help them understand what they're up against when it comes to their income and assets and the student income and assets and how that all plays into what they're going to be expected to contribute to college each year.
I see. Oh, great. So, what is it that Strategies for College actually does for families?
Well, that's a great question. I think our big push, our soapbox, I suppose you could call it, is that we want families to take an integrated approach to finding college affordability and admissibility for their student. So we really try to take a three-pronged approach in integrating a family's finance and affordability review, hopefully at this stage before the end of sophomore year in high school, really to give them the tools they need to then go start searching for colleges when the student's a junior, and help the student understand where their competitive position is, lining them up with target schools, especially if they're looking for money, and finally wrapping it up with the third item, which is making sure the student and family priorities are being met to, for example, make sure they're not 2 days from home when they only want to be 2 hours from home. That's
Right.
part of the aspect there.
All right, well, great. So, you guys, we were talking just before we started recording that you've got a great blog post out there called "The Four Fatal Errors Parents Make,"
Yes.
and I think that's a great way to kind of start our discussion here and talk about these 4 points, because I think I see them a lot in what I'm doing with families as well. And so why don't we start with number 1 there? What are the 4, and then we'll kind of go into each one individually.
Sure. So, a brief overview of the 4, and I know that when we published this article, it was several years ago, so I do need to go in there and just make sure everything's up to date. But I think in terms of the body of the 4 errors, they have rung true for decades and still do today. The number 1 item I think is a problem is families still have this mindset of searching for a college and then figuring out how to pay for it later. So here it is, April, when we're having this conversation here, and all the high school seniors have received admission letters and award letters, and I'm starting to get all these calls out of the blue saying, okay, how do I pay for this now? And they're about 2 years too late to figure out some of this stuff. I think it's terribly important that choosing a college first and paying later is a myth. You really can't do that anymore.
I think that's the way a lot of parents did it when they went to college. And so I think that's in their mind how it's done. And I would agree that we need to change the order of how we do things.
Yeah, and some of the statistics I've read recently show that 15, 20 years ago, on average, a family would pay about 23 to 25% of their available income for college. And just the past 2 years, with incomes remaining pretty stagnant in this country, but the cost of college continuing to rise, we're now up to about 47 to 48% of available income. And to me, that's a second mortgage payment for a lot of people. Actually, it's more than a second mortgage payment.
Absolutely. So what's the solution then? How do we, if we're not supposed to just essentially, do the college thing, figure it out, and then figure out how to pay for it second? What do you recommend instead?
I think it's essential for families to figure out what their EFC is early on. And the EFC is the expected family contribution. For lack of a better term, I think it's the deductible a family needs to be ready to pay for college. It's a number that's derived from 2 different formulas. There's a federal formula, and then there's an institutional one that about 230 colleges use. I don't know if your listeners are aware, but just last October in 2015, a big change went into place that's going to take effect in October of 2016, where all colleges are now doing what's called a 2-year look back at a family's financial situation. So in essence, a family should really be ready for putting their sound financial strategy in place by I'd say by December of a student's sophomore year in high school.
Right. So you're referring to is it's been out there called the prior year, but what they're essentially talking about is the tax year that you use to fill out the forms now starts the middle of your sophomore year and ends the middle of your junior year, at least for the FAFSA. Do you have any understanding of what the CSS is going to require?
Yes, in December, they came out with an announcement that they too are going to join the same structure and do a 2-year prior year look back as well. I have heard from some highly selective colleges as well that they will take the initial read from the prior year financial data but many of them are still going to ask for the prior year data. So they will ask for official copies of taxes for 2 years prior to the student entering college at some of these places.
Okay. So for those that aren't aware, colleges, have you fill out the financial aid forms, and then some of the colleges also will have you verify by sending in your tax returns. And again, they just want to see that you're being above board, and in some cases, they're required by the federal government to also gather that data.
That's correct.
So, and I guess, what do you think is going to happen overall with if they're using the prior year for people where their things have changed dramatically since? Because now we're talking about information that's almost 2 years old by the time you start college.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because colleges are going to feel that they've warned families to be prepared. And if there's some financial changes that come up, they may not be able to help those families for another 12 to 18 months until the following year of college. If something has popped up, for example, a family that I spoke to recently gave me a call because they lost financial aid that they had the previous year. And I tried to look at the data they had put in, and it appears that they were advised by an outside source that, hey, you've got a lot of money in your house. You might want to do a cash out refinance and use that to pay for college. And unfortunately, the student was already at a college that never looked at home equity. And then all of a sudden, this family exposed all this money, and they lost a lot of financial aid.
Mm-hmm. Again, so we need to do the finances before or at least in parallel with our college selection. What are some strategies, or what would that look like for a typical family then? What would you be doing sophomore, junior, senior year to make it kind of happen at the same time?
Well, that's a great question. I find that I've seen some families who will run the numbers, and their results from the two different formulas can be dramatically different from each other. And in large part, it comes from families who might have a lot of equity in their primary residence, or maybe they have a small business that they own part of or majority of. Simple things like that can really affect which formula you should be using. I mean, I've had a family that had such a large chunk of equity in their home and ran a couple small businesses that when we ran their numbers, the federal methodology was expecting them to contribute roughly 10 grand a year, but the institutional methodology was asking for 50 grand a year. That's a $40,000 difference, which over 4 years could be $160,000. So this family made the choice early on to say, well, you know what? We're not even going to look at schools that take institutional methodology, and that really helped them craft their list more appropriately for the family.
Right. So that was just, in essence, understanding how financial aid was going to work for you specifically, and then using that information to help you pick schools to your advantage.
Yes. And I also think that students who are not taking into account the fact that reach schools, which tend to be dream schools for a lot of people, not everybody, but by definition, if a student gets into a reach school, they're in the bottom quartile academically. And those are schools that don't really do a great deal to help fund that student. So a student who got into their reach school may find themselves desperately trying to figure out how to pay for it because the college looks at the statistics and says, well, this is probably a student that's going to transfer or drop out over the course of 4 or 5 years. And if they really want to come here, they'll figure out how to get loans to do it on their own. It's a sad situation.
Right, exactly. So I guess I've seen that as well, that a lot of colleges out there reserve their scholarships and a lot of their financial help for students that are in their target or even above their target, so that it improves their numbers, right?
That's
They want to find students that have real strong academics, so when they publish their average ACT scores or SAT scores or GPAs or whatever other statistics, they want those statistics to look strong because it helps them from an overall recruiting perspective into the future to say, well, we admit strong students, we're selective, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that they can do that is to encourage the stronger students with money and the weaker students, unfortunately. And again, this is relative to the college. a strong student at one college is a weak student at another, and the other way around.
Oh, yes.
And all right, so that's number one. What's number two on the fatal errors?
Well, number two that I think is important for people to realize is that there's this fiercely held delusion that billions of dollars of scholarship money goes unclaimed every year. And personally, from our experience at Strategies for College, we find that it's simply not true. Many students, unfortunately, will spend hours needlessly searching and applying for these random $250, $500 scholarships. And I don't mean to diminish the fact that $500 is still $500, but oftentimes if a college has awarded a student a financial aid package and then the student tells them about the outside scholarships that they won through their high school or Lions Club or whatever it may be, depending on how the package was put together, the college may reduce their grant money by the amount that the student is bringing in from the outside. So it results in a zero net gain, even though the student did all this hard work to get this extra money. So I think it really is important for a student to focus their time and effort on where it should be, on their essay or extracurriculars or God forbid, being a teenager. It's okay to be looking for a little extra money here and there, but it might be more effective or efficient for that student to go work a few extra hours at their job or earn some money over the summer rather than chasing scholarships when they could be spending their time elsewhere.
Absolutely. I guess I've worked with families as well on that subject, and I have had, a few families, and I don't know what your experience is, but for me, it's probably maybe 5 or 10% of families out there win more than scholarships from the college they're attending, more than just one award. So if you win one award, great. But families that have actually won 2 or more awards, not counting this college they're attending, is a very small percentage. So the idea that I'm going to win 10 scholarships and pay for college is, it's possible, but it's that rare family and rare student that does that.
Well, I think it's better for a student to focus on, rather than the small scholarships, focus more on the private scholarships or campus-based scholarships at the schools that the student is applying to. Those are generally the big guns. If a student is eligible or finds the opportunity to apply to a college that offers a $20,000 a year scholarship, well, geez, that's definitely worth their time and effort, because that's coming right from the college itself rather than an outside source.
Absolutely. So there's not billions out there that goes unclaimed. What do you feel about it? Do you think and we often hear about the scholarships out there that aren't necessarily unclaimed, but there's not a lot of competition for them?
Yes, and you hear that, but what are the sources? I think it's often important to ask families that come across this information where they got the information from. Well, it was my aunt's sister's cousin, or it was the neighbor who sent 2 kids to college, so therefore they're an expert.
Right.
It's every student's different, every family's different, and just because one student obtains something doesn't mean it's going to happen for your student. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to research these things, but I think it's just important that a student really try to figure out where they can best use their time and efforts.
Right. I've been telling a lot of families that you pay for college 3 ways, or the whole college process. It's time, money, and emotions.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
Those are the 3 things that are going to go into this process, and you have limited resources in all 3 categories. And realistically, for most families, if you're going to do some planning, you need to plan all 3 of those resources and understand how to kind of balance it. As you mentioned earlier, does it make more sense to flip burgers at McDonald's for a guaranteed $8 an hour, or is it better off to pursue scholarships, or get better grades, take more test prep? There's all kinds of things you could do. It's trying to figure out what you should do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So what's number 4? Or should be number 3.
Number 3. Number 3, I think, is something that a lot of families suffer from, and it's something that's endemic to the United States. We love our lists in this country, and there's a magazine out there that's no longer in business, but they tend to sell a lot once a year. U.S. News and World Report used to be, I think, a weekly magazine in this country, and it went out of business back in the 80s or 90s. But they still have one of the biggest annual selling products there with their top 350 colleges or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am not a big fan of lists because they say, well, these are the top colleges. Well, top colleges for who? They don't always match up to my student or our family in terms of what we're looking for. And I think so many families tend to suffer from what I call brand name paralysis. They feel that there's this, the only way to be successful is to go to the highly visible colleges. And that's just not true anymore. There's a staggering number of excellent colleges out there that offer top quality educations at a manageable cost. The landscape has really changed. Colleges that used to be so-called second and third tier schools way back when I applied last century are now considered first tier institutions. I think what people don't realize is you could have all these credentials, all these numbers. If you're top 5% in your high school, and always have been, you're one of 100,000 plus students in this country. And we're not even counting international applications here. But in the United States, more than 2 million students applied to college last year. So the top 5% is 100,000. And they're all going to apply to the same place, the top 10 or 20 schools, which have only 18,000 open seats. So how do you fit 100,000 perfectly qualified students into 18,000 seats? You don't.
Right, exactly.
And, over the past decade or two, those other 80,000 students have gone elsewhere, and they have in turn raised the bar on all these so-called second-tier schools. And now, I don't believe there's a top 30 anyway. I think there's more like a top 150 or 175 in this country. There's so many great options.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of families, or a lot of students specifically, it's you get a lot more. It's what you do when you're there, and what you're willing to do, and the people you meet and the actions you take have a much bigger impact on your life, I think, than the name of the school. And
that's absolutely right. I think it's much more important than name recognition of a school to have a great fit for your student,
right,
and make sure they're in an area where they have the opportunity for success. They're given all the options and they take advantage of them.
Absolutely. And then, of course, and you're just talking to parents out there, if this is a question I ask a lot of parents, is especially when sometimes the parents are in the hiring and firing position, but certainly most of them have been an employee at some time in their life. And you start asking that question, like, well, when you hire someone, do you ask them what college they went to? Especially if it's more than 5 years ago that they were in college, or do you concern yourself more with, what they've done since college and what their experience is, and et cetera, et cetera. And almost always, and the logic there, of course, is that most hiring is based on things well beyond the name brand of the school that you attended. And it may, again, it may open some doors for your very first job when they're hiring new grads, but I think that's even less likely today.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so many colleges have made career counseling a huge part of their education today. I mean, families and parents in particular have been demanding that for the past decade. What's my return on investment? And the colleges have started to do a really good job at responding. I mean, there's some schools that I know of that have 80 to 90% employment for most of their students, sometimes even before the end of junior year in college, simply because of the internship opportunities or perhaps a co-op program or things like that they've put in place. And obviously it's up to the student to take advantage of these things, but if the opportunities are there, there's some great outcomes no matter what the name of the school is.
Absolutely. Again, getting back to, so what is a parent to do if it's not look at U.S. News and Reports or many of their competitors? I mean, they sell so many magazines and get such advertising with their college rank that many companies have jumped on the college rank bandwagon. But if that's not how we choose a school, how do we choose a school? What do we do instead?
I think From my perspective, when I'm working with families, they want to run the numbers, determine what they're going to be expected to contribute every year and what is affordable for them. Not just for the 1 year of college, we're talking about all 4 years for that student. And by the way, some people have more than one child to educate. So it's important to say, this is an 8 or 9 year window for my family. How do we manage all of those years? And once you have that in place, then you can say, okay, let's go find some schools that are going to offer the educational opportunities our student wants and needs, and also provide the scholarships or the net cost that's going to work with our budget. And I think that's really a better approach to this process.
Okay. And then finally, what's number 4 on our list here?
Oh boy, number 4, time. Like you said before, it's one of the limited resources we have in the college process here. And I believe a lot of families tend to grossly underestimate the workload that takes and the effort that it takes to get through this in a, I guess you could call it a project management process. Yeah, I work with students who are sophomores and juniors approaching age 16, and they're all excited about getting their driver's license. Well, here in Massachusetts, where I am, it takes a good 25 to 30 hours of supervised practice driving. You've got your classroom time. It all adds up to 50 to 70 hours, depending on the program you're in. And that's just for a driver's license. I think that for the college planning side, families should expect to put in a good 90 to 100 hours of work over the course of 2 years or more to make sure that they're doing everything they need to do and not waiting until the fall of senior year in high school to do it.
Absolutely.
Waiting until the fall of senior year means that poor student's going to have to drink water from a fire hose, which is just impossible. They get stressed out. They're going to get knocked over. They've got too many other things going on that make it way too challenging to just pick up the ball and start practicing at that stage.
Right. So when do you recommend families kind of get started then?
Well, I don't think students are typically engaged. I know there's some outliers here, but they're typically starting to get ready to think about college when they're juniors in high school. I think when you push them too hard before that to start looking around and researching schools, you're kind of putting too much stress on them at that stage. They've got so much going on in the high schools already. They should really bear down and focus on that. Now, it's not to say some students aren't ready for it, but I think middle of junior year is roughly a really key starting point for the students. I think for the parents, though, they really need to have their financial strategy in place a year prior to that. I think it's essential to start lining everything up by the middle of sophomore year in high school.
Right. Absolutely. And I would agree with that. I think for many families, especially if it's your oldest we're talking about, you're getting acclimated to high school your freshman year, and you're overwhelmed with that transition for a lot of families. But I think parents should roll right into college by their sophomore, junior year, even if your student's not ready. I mean, there's a lot of students that aren't all that mature, and it's really not appropriate for them to be looking at colleges. But it's not to mean that mom and dad can't start learning how the finances might work and understanding financial aid and figuring out if they should be saving and investing more or less, and there's a gazillion things that you could do, and it's figuring out which ones are, again, going to be right for you, because time, the other thing that I talk about a lot is time goes very fast. I mean, you think how quickly it went from them being babies to them, being off to high school. It seems like that went fast. Well, it never slows down. I mean, high school is going to be gone in an instant. And
right. You're absolutely right. I think before they realize it, they've turned their head and the student's waving goodbye to head out.
Absolutely. So parents can start their homework again, even if students aren't ready to do the visits and that type of thing.
Well, you could also make it a subtle visit too. If you're a family with a freshman in high school and you're taking a family trip or even just driving around and you happen to see a college campus, just pull over, get out of the car, take a little walk around, just get a feel for what a campus setting is like. No pressure, but just let the student take it all in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I always tell families that when we get into the college selection, I don't know if you've run into this where there's kind of at a log jam. They say things like, well, we don't know where to visit because junior doesn't know where he wants to go.
Yep.
And Junior doesn't know where he wants to go because he hasn't seen any colleges. So it's the chicken and egg challenge, and I tell parents you just have to bite the bullet and visit something.
Yep.
To give Junior a frame of reference.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there's a lot of that going on.
Right, exactly. So they need to see a big school and a small school and a near school and a far school and an urban and a rural, and then from there you might be able to then get some idea of what the family's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, well, I went to this type of school and I hated it. Okay, well that helps. There's a batch of schools we can cross off the list now.
Yep.
But
exactly.
Absolutely. All right, well that was a lot of great information. Can you tell people how they can learn more and get in touch with you? I know you're in the Boston area, so tell us about your websites or social media or whatever else you have that's available for families.
Sure. That's a great way for people to start researching what we've done in the past 25 years. And we've put together a lot of great tools for families who are just starting out, even for families with younger kids who just want to learn, what am I up against here with my 3-year-old? We have a website called strategiesforcollege.com, and we have a lot of free stuff on there, including our membership site, which it doesn't cost anything except an email address. You plug it in and you get access to a lot of our free content and videos and some calculators and a forum where you can send in questions and get answers. We've opened that up for free for 60 days for anybody who signs up. We also have some scholarship information on our site. And another thing that I'm happy to do, just because of my background in the financial aid world and seeing how little information is out there for families, is we offer a complimentary EFC for families. So anybody who doesn't even know where to start, they can contact us and we can do a quick run through of their expected family contribution and give them some feedback on where to go next, how to get started on this process. The other thing we have is a blog, which is on the website collegesearchgameplan.com. All one word there, College Search Game Plan. And we try to publish something there every week or so, and just get some important articles out there for folks. One last thing is I'm on Twitter at College Game Plan, and we have a Facebook page for Strategies for College as well.
All right. I appreciate all the great information. I will actually put a link directly to this specific article that we were just talking about, the 4, what do we call it again? The 4 mistakes?
The 4 fatal errors.
4 fatal errors. There we go. That's what
right.
I was looking for. So the 4 fatal errors will have a direct link, as well as all the other websites and social media will all be linked in our show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. I appreciate it, Todd, that you spent some time with us today, and we'll stay in touch.
Very good.
All right, there you go. That was a great interview with Todd. Hopefully the 4 fatal errors that we talked about will be avoided by your family now. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to get a hold of Todd or myself. You can go to our websites and contact us through the websites. You can also send me an email at brad@tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. I look forward to any feedback. Also, I would appreciate it if you gave us a honest rating and review in iTunes. That helps us get found when people are searching for college topics. Our podcast will pop up a little bit quicker if we have quality reviews. And again, if you appreciate what we're doing, I'd appreciate it if you went in there and gave an honest review. It only takes a few minutes, and you can do that through iTunes. You can also get this information through Stitcher and other places where you can download these podcasts. For those of you that are perhaps listening directly on the website, there are ways that you can set up podcasting so that you can get a podcast, which is the audio file, directly to your phone or to your iPad or to your whatever device that you're interested in, so that you can listen to podcasts while you're in the car or exercising or on a walk or doing the dishes or whatever else is going on in your life. So for those of you that are new to podcasting, spend a little bit of time exploring how podcasting works. And if you need a little help, I'm sure your tech-savvy teenager that you're planning college for can help you out. All right, that's all we have for today. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.